Hey everyone, my name's Eagle. I'm the editor over at No Earth Comics and the publisher. And today we're going to be doing another one in a series of op-eds, opinion editorials. So the views that I'm stating here are not necessarily the views of No Earth Comics. So today I'm going to be covering what I'm going to term the current Marvel meltdown. And this is going to require unpacking this a little bit. It's going to require taking a look at it because right now we're in a unique position in comic book fandom because the left, the far left, is ticked off at Marvel. The far right is ticked off at Marvel. Right now everybody's ticked off at Marvel. So we're going to be taking a look at this. This is going to be fun. Hold on tight. All of this comes about as a result of the current Secret Empire crossover event. And Secret Empire is a cool concept. and we're going to discuss that. The concept is cool. But I've done a number of videos on writing for comics. One of the things I pointed out is ideas and concepts are not the important part. The important part is the execution. As an example, right now, in preparation for Secret Empire, I've been trying to catch up on all of the comics that I've missed that are a direct tie-in or direct prelude to Secret Empire. So, I started with Sam Wilson, Captain America. Once again, this is a great concept. Sam Wilson has been best friends with Captain America since the character was basically introduced. He was a headliner on the Captain America and the Falcon book. He is never been a sidekick. He's never been a token. He's always been a very competent character in his own right. And that's pretty impressive for somebody who talks to a bird. But the Falcon character is cool. And the movies have made him even cooler because now it's not a red and white costume. Now it's military equipment, and it looks even more plausible than anything they've done in the comics. So when Captain America, Steve Rogers, loses his super soldier age protection insurance and becomes an old man, Sam Wilson takes over for Captain America. And this is exactly who should take over. It should be either Bucky or Sharon Carter or Sam Wilson. There's really no other choices. We've seen what happens when you put somebody else in the suit. We get the 1950s Captain America, who is now U.S. agent. And this is not the type of Captain America we want. So we get a new Captain America. And we go back to the whole concept of, or the whole notion that the concept is not the important part. The important part is the execution. And I've got to tell you, having read the first 6 issues of the Sam Wilson Captain America, I'm fixing to read the rest of them because I'm reading these in a Secret Empire reading order. And just based on the first 6 issues of Sam Wilson Captain America, I'm not impressed. Worse, I'm not a happy reader because the political themes, theme is the wrong word here. It's actually the correct word in terms of writing, but it's an incorrect word in terms of the severity of what we're talking about. The political parts of the book are so heavy-handed and so biased and so unbalanced that it's like being hit over a head with a liberal hammer. Now, I'm not a liberal. I'm not a conservative. I'm a libertarian. So personally, I think both sides are messed up in a lot of ways, and I think both sides have some good points. The Captain America Sam Wilson comic book is so biased that I can't read it with any type of real enjoyment because it is preaching to me. And let me tell you, I would not feel any differently if it was bashing liberals. I wouldn't feel any different if it was a libertarian book bashing the liberals and the conservatives. I would not feel any different because the preachiness of it ruins the book for me. And I'm not alone in this. There are liberals out there who are disliking this particular run of Captain America for the same reasons I'm quoting you. So one of the things to take into account when you're writing for comics is that anything you write that alienates 40% of your audience is probably a bad idea. Just saying. If you write it too strongly, you're not just going to alienate 40%, you're going to alienate a good number of the people that are on your side as well. And that's exactly what Nick Spencer has done with the writing on the Sam Wilson Captain America. Now I'm reading the next chunk of the story, which takes place in Uncanny Avengers. And Steve Rogers is a minor character in there, and I'm enjoying it more. The story has not really grabbed me yet. The character development is almost perfunctory. They've obviously said, okay, you already know who these characters are. We don't need to really develop them a whole lot. And I'm feeling a little let down on that because these are some characters that are very disparate and being tossed in together, and I think there's a lot of room for character development that I'm not seeing. But I'm not here to give you a review of this. I'm here to just lay out what's going on. So the Secret Empire starts with Sam Wilson, and it continues from there. And what has happened is the reveal that Steve Rogers... Okay, first off, we start the controversy with Sam Wilson as Captain America. And here we start seeing the first of what I'm going to call straw man arguments. Actually, I'm not going to call them that, they are that. But I'm going to refer to them as straw man arguments. So I'm going to go ahead and define that for the people who aren't clear on it. It is where you create an argument that the other side is not necessarily making in order to beat it down. When people started objecting to the Sam Wilson Captain America, the immediate outcry from the supporters was, well, you're just being racist. And that's disingenuous. That is a straw man argument because that's not the reason. You've got a very, very small minority that objected to the idea of a black man in the Captain America suit. I'm sure there was a small minority that objected to a black man in the Iron Man suit. I'm sure there was a small minority that objected to a black man in the Mr. Terrific suit. Small minorities. Okay? But the time of Rhodey in the Iron Man suit back in the, the mid-'80s, was very well received by the fans. Rhodey was an obvious choice, and the Devil in the Bottle storyline is still one of the most beloved Iron Man storylines ever. And there you have a black man in the Iron Man suit the entire time. This is not about race, people. This is about poor storytelling. Mr. Terrific, most people don't even know that Mr. Terrific was originally white. Because the current Mr. Terrific is pretty much owning the part. Another example, there's an entire generation of people who have no idea that Green Lantern is anything other than a black man. Because they grew up on the John Stewart Green Lantern on the Justice League animated series. This is not about race. This is not about comic geeks being racists. So the idea of tossing that out there as a way of saying, well, if you're criticizing the Sam Wilson Captain America, you're a racist, is absolute BS. And empirical evidence says, no, that's not the reason. So our controversy starts there. And it continues to where Steve Rogers comes back as Captain America and is revealed to be a Hydra agent. And this upset a number of people. Because, oh great, Steve Rogers is back as Captain America. Sam Wilson is still Captain America. We've got two Captain Americas. That's not a problem. This has been done before. The problem is you just made one of them a Nazi. And I know that Marvel is saying, oh, Hydra is not Nazis. Anybody who is exposed to Marvel Comics through the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, knows that Hydra is Nazis, knows that they came out of the Nazi Party, knows that they are founded by Nazis, knows that they are Nazis. Anybody who's been reading Marvel Comics for more than 15 years knows that the current incarnation of Hydra is a fascist death cult that predates the Nazi Party, but the fact is Hydra is a stand-in for the Nazi Party. This has been true since Hydra was created and Nick Fury was fighting them back in the 60s. Hydra is Marvel's stand-in for the Nazis. They were, in the comics, they were created by the Red Skull, who was a Nazi, and they are staffed by a bunch of ex-Nazi Germans. They're Nazis. Hail Hydra. They're Nazis. Don't make any mistake about it. They're Nazis. The idea of claiming they're not Nazis is disingenuous at best and ignoring all perceptions of comic books at worst. Anybody who's claiming that is basically expecting the average comic fan to be an idiot. Now, the reason Hydra exists in Marvel Comics is because they're Nazis. They're a fun bad guy to take on because everybody can hate them. There are no redeeming qualities to Hydra. None. And here comes part of the problem. So, when the Red Skull is putting together the basis for Secret Empire, he starts basically quoting Donald Trump. This is, again, we're going to get into this more in just a few moments, but he basically becomes a mouthpiece for Donald Trump. The words are presented as being his, but what happens is the sentiments expressed and such not just make him the villain of the piece, and obviously the villain of the piece, but as one person said on the internet, by giving him a set of words that are believed by 40% of Americans, to some Americans, you just made a bad guy the good guy. Once again, this is not a well-executed concept. The worst part about this is that Hydra becomes a stand-in for conservatives. And in doing so, this means that anything that is presented as being part of Hydra and being part of the conservative movement automatically becomes equated with fascists and Nazis. And this is, once again, you are demonizing and vilifying 40% of the country. This is not a good idea. In fact, that this is a downright lousy idea, especially when there's a good chance that you're demonizing and vilifying 40% of your audience, the people who actually buy your comics. So, Marvel, in addition to pulling all of the various crossover events that they've been pulling, and the reboots, and the number ones, and the constant character updates have wound up setting up Secret Empire in such a way that it is demonizing a good swath of their readers. And so all of this winds up affecting sales. Let me go on a tangent just for a moment here. Another problem with the way that Marvel's been setting this up is right now, if you're a fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and you've never read a comic, or you haven't read one in 10 years, and you walk into a comic book shop to buy an issue of Thor to see what the Odin son is up to, you discover Thor is Jane Foster, who is one of the most vapid characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. She's literally the one female character who you could remove from the story without affecting it very much. If you walk in to buy a copy of Captain America, you discover that Captain America is a Nazi. Or that Captain America is actually Falcon, depending on which version you're buying. If you walk in to buy a copy of the Hulk, you discover that the Hulk is a man named Amadeus Cho. If you walk in to buy a copy of Iron Man, you discover that Iron Man is a 15-year-old techno nerd. Black female. If you walk into Hawkeye is actually fairly close to how he is in the MCU. Of course, there's two Hawkeyes in the Hawkeye comic, but again, if you're an MCU fan and you walk into a comic book shop, you're not going to become a Marvel Comics fan, because none of the characters that you came in there to buy are on the shelves. So all of these things together constitute Marvel's sales slump. Over 50% of Marvel's titles right now are running in cancellation territory traditionally. Anything below 20,000 issues is running in cancellation territory. Even characters that are pretty much the same as they are on the big screen, such as the Black Panther. The Black Panther kicked off 2015 with absolutely phenomenal sales. Had sales that looked like they had come out during the 90s. And quickly dropped into 20,000 issues. Because the story was not sustainably good. Now, before you start saying, well, this is the problem, let us remember that DC, who is ruling the charts right now, is presenting us with diverse characters, but they're also characters that look much the same as they do up on the big screen. They look much the same as they do over on the TV series. DC is presenting the fans with characters that not only look the same as they do on the show, but in some cases, they're actually presenting seasons of the show in the comic books. 2.5, 3.5, 1.5. They're presenting what happens during the hiatus between seasons in the comics. So, when we look at Marvel sales slumps, there is no one reason why it's happened. But in the midst of everything, one of Marvel's officials decides to fan shame. He decides to say, well, we heard from the retailers that the fans don't want diversity. Again, empirical evidence says he's wrong. Fans eat up diverse characters. They really do. One of the things that we've known since comics started is that every time there's a diverse character introduced, and introduced in a manner that is consistent with the universe and involves good storytelling, a fandom develops for that character. This is how Falcon is still around. A black character introduced during the 60s, and he is still popular. This is how Black Panther is still around. This is how Luke Cage is still around. Misty Knight. I'm just naming characters that have made it to the MCU. So the idea that fans don't want diversity is false. We want it because we like reading about different cultures. We like reading about different experiences. It's what keeps a monthly story from being repetitive. So now we get to Secret Empire. And Secret Empire is where it all comes crashing down. Because when they did their summit over the summer that was the story summit, they decided that they had gone in the wrong direction. And they decided that they were going to hire Mark Guggenheim from CW DC superhero fame to be the new overseer on the X-Men. They decided that they were going to not do any more large company-wide crossovers for at least the next 18 months, except for Secret Empire, which they said flat out up front, we have invested too much into this not to do it. We have done too much prep work, and it would be impossible not to do it. And I understand that, because the amount of time needed to plan a story this big, and don't get me wrong, this is a huge story, is intense. So we get Secret Empire. I've seen all of these tags on there that says you need to stop Secret Empire now just to save things. No, you don't stop it. You go ahead with it. But now they're trying to do damage control. And the damage control is coming in several different forms. One form is fan shaming. And as a publisher myself, the idea of saying, you know what? Let's blame the fans for the bad reaction. Come on. Why on earth would you do that? This is your customers. You are selling them a product. They don't want the product. The sales are reflecting this. Secret Empire has fans, but most of the Marvel fans are not buying into Secret Empire. So what you do is you shame them. Yeah, that's going to make them pull out the wallet. That's going to make them add the stuff to the pull list. No, it's not going to happen. The second thing is, this last week, Marvel said, just be patient with us. You're going to like the way this goes. No, you don't get to do this. You don't get to say, we understand that you hate the story that we're telling, but just be patient, you'll like the ending. Because nobody sits through the first hour and a half of the movie expecting to be vindicated at the end. Expecting to say, oh, well, the end turned it all around. No, that doesn't happen. And the third thing that they're doing is they're trying to backtrack on what Hydra is. They're trying to backtrack on the entire implications of, oh, this isn't a political story, they have said. Please, just please, stop. It is a very political story. So now we come to the fun part. Free Comic Book Day was this week, and a number of the regressive left decided that it would be fun to protest the fascism of fascists taking over America secretly in the story by burning the comics. Let me repeat that. People are protesting fascism by burning books. If you're capable of understanding that particular logic, I have a bridge to sell you. Cash only, no checks. And you've got people on the other side that are protesting the fact that an icon of America is a Nazi. So we have simultaneously, with one story, ticked off the alt-right and the control left. That right there is enough to make me finish reading the story, by the way. Just for the sheer amusement. value. But this is an indication of how divisive things are becoming. The sad part is the people on the left that are protesting this are ignoring the fact that Nick Spencer, the writer, is far left himself. He's a person who has actually done everything he can to demonize the right, both in his writing, his Twitter feed, and his conversations that he's had with people. And he is an ally. And they are turning on him because, near as I can tell, they don't understand the story. I'm tempted to believe that the people on the right don't understand the story either. Now then, I've got my own problems with the story. Actually, no, I don't have any problems with the story itself. I'm having problems with the execution of the story. I'm having problems with the way the story is written. But the idea of having a Cap who is Hydra and firmly believes it for various reasons is appealing to me from a writing point of view. I think that Marvel has handled this badly. I think that they are continuing to handle it badly. And what they need is far better damage control than what they're doing, because the damage control is actually making things worse. It's actually making people question Marvel and the comic book industry even more than they already were. What I want to see is the end of the story for a number of reasons. Number one, at the end of the story, there should be some sort of resolve that gets our Steve Rogers back in the fray, because the idea of leaving Steve Rogers as a Hydra agent is just unthinkable. And there should be something that resolves this in such a way that the fans are happy. The execution of this concept has been bad. But all sorts of things in the mix of the story have just been poorly handled. Leaking the Hail Hydra panel to the press was really good for publicity, and it set off a crap storm that we're still feeling in the comic book industry, and we're going to be feeling it for a while. And so as a publisher, as a comic creator, I'm constantly looking at these things going, how do I avoid doing this same thing? I'm constantly looking at this, how do I avoid having the creators within my company do the same thing? And so a lot of the videos over in our creative section are on how to avoid this. I need to wrap this up. I've already run 28 minutes. The thing that I'm left with on all of this is that we as a fandom, we as an industry, we as comic readers have reached a point where the real world politics are interfering with the enjoyment of our hobby. And we've reached a point where partisanship has divided us. Previously, when political stories were done, they were usually done to unite. X-Men have been political since the very first issue. X-Men have served as a metaphor for whatever oppressed minority you wanted them to serve for. They've served as a metaphor for blacks. They've served as a metaphor for gays. They've served as a metaphor for Muslims. They've served as a metaphor for every type of oppressed minority that you can imagine. But X-Men has always been about uniting different sides, not dividing them further. And I think that that's my biggest problem with what I'm reading in Secret Empire, is that it is divisive. It is partisan. It is designed to... I don't see myself in the heroes in Secret Empire so far. I don't see myself in the villains in Secret Empire so far. This is a story that's being written about somebody other than me. And part of this is because it's straw man. It's creating things that don't exist except in a very, very, very small fringe minority. And it's using labels to beat people down. And this is happening on both sides. You have people using all of the racist, homophobic, misogynist, sexist, Islamophobic, transphobic, whatever label to beat down one side, and then you have people on that side using some words I'm not even going to say here, in addition to SJW, feminazis, whatever, to beat down the other side. And the fact is, this is not what we as comic book readers want. We as comic book readers want good stories. We want comics that we can enjoy without having to sit there and defend our hobby, our passion, in some cases our obsession, from people that want to destroy it, and people that want to divide it, and people that want to irrevocably change it. Comic books evolve. They evolve. They have been evolving since they first started. Every single comic book fan knows that their comics are going to evolve, that the characters are going to evolve, that the stories are going to evolve. So change is going to happen, and everybody knows it. But what we're seeing is a divisiveness, a destruction. And I'm sorry this has gone on so long. If you've watched this far, I thank you. I don't have a conclusion for this because I'm still dealing with the fact that both sides are ticked off at the same story for totally different reasons. I'm still dealing with the fact that there are people burning books. I'm still ticked off. I'm still dealing with the fact that there are people that are not even wanting to give the story a chance because of what they've heard about it rather than actually trying it themselves. And I understand that, but if you are a Comixology Unlimited customer, you can read part of it online for free to get a taste of it. But thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I appreciate letting me bend your ear for a half hour, and have a good day.